from Jaipur, Ashwin. Right, someone from, okay, Raj Nandini, Fabian. Okay, amazing. Karen, hi. Rupak, good to know that a lot of you from different parts of the world. So in case you're joining us from the western side of the world, then good morning to you. If you're from India, surrounding countries, good evening. Great. Divakar, hi. Gurpreet, Shiva, hi, hi, hi. Great, 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 great. So nice to see your introductions. It's always nice to have, excited, enthusiastic learners. I can already see curiosity that you guys have uh, to learn about GenAI and how it can increase your productivity, right? Okay, okay, great. So if you're watching us on LinkedIn and YouTube as well, uh, let us know your introductions quickly on the live comments. We'll also be looking at questions, whatever you may have, right? Okay, that's great. That's great. So we're just about to get started, but let me quickly introduce the agenda first as to what we are about, why we are gathered here. So we are here to help you understand how GenAI can improve productivity. If you're someone who is a leader of your organization, you're leading teams, you will also understand how you can improve productivity of your teams through this chat between Abhishek and Nagendra. Firstly, we'll also introduce them to all of you, and then we'll get to understanding how exactly GenAI has contributed to increase in productivity, what goes behind this technology, and how you can utilize it, what challenges that may come up, and all of that. And also, we'll help you understand how you can upskill and be ready for what's coming up in GenAI through our GenAI for Business Transformation course. So we'll take you through the enrollment steps, all the course details towards the end, right? So let me just quickly introduce Simplilearn to you before that. In case you're new here, Simplilearn offers skills in all of these domains that you see, Gen AI being one of them, just one of the many domains that we offer courses in. So you've got certifications, you've got long-term programs. You also can find courses that prepare you for certain career paths. So in case you're interested in checking out our portfolio of courses, you should do that on simplylearn.com and check out these courses that I mentioned. But like I said, the focus today is to obviously understand the capabilities of GenAI and productivity and take you through this course towards the end, right? So you may have questions. A lot of them, right? I already see a question in the Q&A box. So please make sure, if you're watching us on LinkedIn and YouTube, please make sure you use the live chat to add your questions. Yes. And if you're watching us on Zoom, make sure you use the Q&A box and not the chat box. So just for context, we've got more than 150 learners here in the session. Combine that with the social media platforms as well. So we've got 250 people watching us already, right? So it's going to be difficult for me to track the chat box here. So on Zoom, please make sure you use the Q&A box. And on the social media platforms, please make sure you put your question, and then there's a team who will handle it for you and pass it on to me here, right? So we'll take these questions towards the end. But if I do find a relevant question that that is relevant to what we are discussing, I will take it during the session. Yes. So there's not going to be a presentation today. It's a chat. So you don't have to worry about looking at or learning from slides. You're going to understand through this conversation about how GenAI has influenced productivity. Okay. Right. So let's quickly jump to understanding you guys better. Yes. So let me understand what your professional background is. Now, you're going to be answering a lot of polls if you are watching us on Zoom. But like I said, if you're watching us on LinkedIn and YouTube, whenever I have a poll, please make sure you use the live chat to interact with us. Okay. So this quick poll is about what your professional background is, just for us to know you a little better and also base our conversation around, um, the majority here. Yes. Yes. So I'm sure a lot of you are able to see the pop-up on your screens. Please make sure you answer that, and we'll keep the poll live for the next 20-25 seconds. Yeah, if you're just here, remember we're about to start. We're still not started the conversation yet. We're just collecting information to know more about you. So let us know what your professional background is. Yeah. And remember, the session is being recorded. So let's say you miss something, do not worry. Yeah. You can always go back and refer to our live streams, or you will receive a follow-up email as well in the next 24 hours. So don't worry if you miss something, you didn't hear, your network acted up, whatever the reason is. Okay. Okay. That's great. Always use the poll. It just helps us, you guys, a little better. I'm just ending the poll right here. And Abhishek and Nagendra, we've got half of them, nearly half of them who are from tech-facing roles. Okay, right. A third of them others, a few of them sales, marketing, and the support functions. Okay, great. Great, great. Thanks so much for your responses. There's one more coming up. We want to understand how critical is AI in your current job role, right? Okay, great. Thank you, John and Lakshmi Priya, for your responses. We're just jumping on to the next question now. We want to understand how critical is AI or Gen AI as a skill for your job. Number one to choose, but yes, we would like to know what your answer is. Okay. Yeah, Ravi, on the poll, please. Always on the poll. It's easier for us to track. Okay. Yes, people on YouTube and LinkedIn. Great. Thanks. Keep those responses coming. Yeah. Yes. Great. Okay. Okay. Amazing. So I think I will end this poll as well, and I'll share the results. It's just a 50-50 between critical, somewhat important. It's definitely relevant to majority of the audience. So yes, I'm sure you'll find today's discussion chat useful, and you will obviously gain insights into how you can increase your productivity further, and also reduce your time in doing the redundant tasks, right? Great, great. So let's just proceed now and introduce our speakers who were kind enough to accept our invitation. Nagendra, hi. Welcome once
Hi.
again. Yes. So it's great to have you again, Nagendra. Nagendra's got more than 3 decades of experience in leadership and mentoring. Over his career, he's facilitated about 1,000 workshops. He is, a generative AI, a design thinking, an agile DevOps. He's also a leadership coach. So obviously, you're going to be learning from some veterans in the industry. So it's great to have you, Nagendra. I'll just let you introduce yourself to the audience as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aparna. I hope I'm clearly audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, fantastic. Hi, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. An absolute pleasure to be amidst all of you here today. I won't spend too much time telling you about myself, but let's just say that among many other things that I've done, the last couple of years have been the most exciting in terms of epochal moments in technology, right? I think the last epochal moment we had like this was probably with the advent of the internet. But with generative AI coming out in the last couple of years, I think it has made AI more accessible and more easy to use for a majority of of us, I would say. And I'm very happy to be amidst you here today. I've been, as Aparna was saying, in the digital transformation, agile coaching, being a DevOps champion and a design thinking champion. Many of these things that I enjoy doing. And guess what? Generative AI is going to be a very handy partner in the room in all of those aspects. So you can kind of think of generative AI as the umbrella of the things that I'm doing today. But once again, very happy to be amidst all of you. Thank you, Aparna.
Great. Thanks. Obviously, we're going to talk about, all of those industries and, job functions as well as to how Gen AI contributes in these roles. So we also have Abhishek Gautam, who's got immense experience again across industries, not just limited to edtech. So he leads data and AI at Simplilearn. He is responsible for a lot of courses that you see on simplilearn.com. So again, Abhishek, welcome to this session. It's great to have you once again. I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Thanks, Aparna and Nagendra. Pleased to be here. So I'm Abhishek Gautam. I've worked across various industries. My first spate with AI was when I was working in a oil and gas refinery. I used to work on those complex control algorithms. And then AI was used only as a prediction algorithm of probably predicting the mean time between failure, how things will pan out, etc., etc. And probably a decade after that, now generative AI is a very different ballgame, very exciting space to be into. Passionate about technology and how it disrupts businesses. Very happy to be here amongst all of you. We'll try to answer all the questions that we can. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Amazing to have you. I think all our learners are now interested in just jumping right into the conversation. I think they're all waiting for you guys to share your insights, share your learnings. But I think the first question that a lot of learners and also I have is how exactly the advent of AI increased productivity? How did that correlation really happen? So how do you think, Gen AI is relevant in increasing productivity in an organization? Nagendra, maybe you could answer that.
Sure, I'm happy to get started with that, and thank you for that question. Certainly a very important question for today's discussion.
Yeah.
My first kind of tryst with AI, so to speak, was in 2011, about maybe 14 years now, right? When IBM actually brought out IBM Watson, and they introduced it in a very interesting way, right? They brought it out as part of a live TV show, kind of like a game show, where
Okay.
the host asks questions and puts up categories on the board. This is a very popular TV show called Jeopardy. Many of you might be aware of it. And IBM Watson actually participated in that as an other participant along with human competitors, where it had to listen to the host's questions and strategize and get back with the answer. And very interesting, very phenomenal epochal moment for me when I saw that. I was not part of the IBM Watson project, but I was certainly a part of IBM, and as being part of the same brand, we were all super excited about that.
Yeah.
And obviously, IBM Watson won and beat out the other human champions in that particular episode. But where I'm going with that is if we look back at 14 years ago, if we had that kind of capability in AI, imagine how much more it has advanced since then, right?
Mm.
So the thought was that we are going to make it public through this platform, but in reality, IBM Watson and many other AI capabilities since then have participated in various industries. Abhishek was giving an awesome example of the oil and gas
Yes.
refinery industry, right? So you look at any industry today, they're looking at how can AI help us be better. And I think we are looking at a moment where leaders in organizations, most of them I talk to, are now looking at how can AI be part of their strategy and why? Why is that, right? Because the kind of productivity gains that organizations are beginning to sense, though we are yet, kind of yet to discover a lot, and we are only barely scratching the surface. Leaders are sensing that the productivity gains from use of AI is going to be phenomenal. In
Mm.
my own observation in the last 18 months, 18 plus months, as I work with various organizations across various industries, I see at least an average of 40% productivity gains with the use of AI and associated technologies. So I
Mm.
think it's going to be phenomenal. But I would also love to hear Abhishek's thoughts on this. Abhishek, please do add if you think that there's something you can connect to what I said.
Absolutely, and Agitra, I think a lot of creative and analytical tasks, a lot of repetitive tasks that used to exist have now been automated. Communications have been enhanced tremendously. So I can see there are certain attendees, chatbots that have joined. It kind of shows as a separate attendee. Uh,
Mm.
so all this allows us a very optimum resource allocation, right? So employees now can concentrate on high value activities which can drive innovation, which can drive growth instead of being engaged with all these mundane tasks.
Mm.
And probably that's the reason why we are already seeing a 40% improvement in productivity. And I'm certain this is only going to increase because we are
Yeah.
still in that artificial narrow intelligence region, striving to get to the stage of artificial general intelligence.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, very soon, hopefully, things will be doubling or exponentially increasing.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great thought on how it's. I mean, it's just exciting to see what's coming up next, right? But I think another question that comes up in my mind is, how is this really different from traditional AI or the traditional automation? So Abhishek, you mentioned that your first stint in oil and gas, you were using, basing your decisions on traditional AI. So how is that really different from generative AI?
Yeah, Pranav. So artificial intelligence back then was just like probably certain companies were experimenting. They were providing us with predictive tools. So the use case was very limited. It's
Mm.
mostly different kinds of controllers, variable controllers, programmable logical controllers that do all the automation there.
Yeah.
Uh, so AI was the usage of AI was very limited. Uh, Traditional AI was always used as a predictive tool. Uh, Ever since the transformers model came in and allowed us the capability to generate, AI became generative. It started generating content, then code, so on and so forth.
Mm.
So how this changed things is that the models became very adaptive, right?
Mm.
They can churn a lot of data, have its own, a system can have its own intelligence. So it can work on the context given. And if suddenly the context is changed or data set is changed, it can still adapt to it and
Yeah.
come to a
Mm.
solution. So all this has led to very wide adoption, right?
Mm.
Now we have multimodal capabilities in generative AI. So it's not only typing. So it's a step beyond natural language processing. So normal conversation language, not only being typed, it being comprehended and responded to through multiple models, right?
Mm.
I frequently use chat GPT, multimodal capabilities. Instead of typing, suppose I'm driving, I can always talk to it. This
Yes.
chat, and it does a lot of work while we are driving. So this is nothing less than a fantasy that probably people could have had a decade ago. And
Yes.
all this has made the AI in today's era extremely flexible, extremely adaptable,
Yeah.
beyond the predictive realms into a realm where things are changing, and now you can create solutions out of AI. Right? So a traditional automation system typically works on rule-based mechanisms, right? You have certain rules, certain guardrails that you follow. Now that has been expanded tremendously. You have an innate intelligence that the system possesses,
Mm.
and based on how you are changing the context, how much do you want to retain the primary intelligence and build upon it? How you want to restrict it to a certain domain, probably using RAG solutions or similar
Mm.
solutions, and utilize it. So the flexibility, the use cases that are evolving, all this is entirely different from what we've seen earlier, and this is only going to increase because now we have agentic frameworks coming in.
Correct.
Agentic frameworks are somewhere above the bot systems, which were like brute force automation based systems, kept on doing the same thing again and again. Now the agents have some level of autonomy, right? So they can make certain decisions, not human like decisions yet. That is still probably a few years away, but a
Mm.
certain levels of decisions can be made. A lot of interactions can happen. An agent can actually understand the environment that it is in and act accordingly. So that's the difference that I see, and I'll be happy to take Nagendra's view on it because he has worked on like multiple facets of technology. So
Very nicely put, Abhishek. I really love the way you described it as automation was rule-based and generative AI is something that is now becoming multimodal. Very nicely put. Absolutely agree. If I look back to the different areas of research in AI over the last decades, it started off around deep learning, machine learning, natural language processing, neural networks.
Mm.
I think generative AI is a culmination of all that, right? So if you look under the covers, generative AI uses a lot of those aspects to bring about the power of AI in a conversational interface to
Correct.
normal users. So
Mm.
before generative AI, if you had to use the power of AI, most likely you had to do it programmatically, right? So it was really not something as like as normal users we would directly get a chance to interact with AI in most cases. So there would have to be that layer of engineers teams working to create some kind of an interface by programmatically accessing the power of AI. And generative AI is also a similar application, but they have done it such that it need not be for any one specific domain, need not be for any one specific task, but it is very broad based. So I'm sure we've all heard of these generative AI systems being based on large language models, GPT being the architecture behind it, and many others available these days as well. And I think that kind of a transformation happened over the last few years, thereby allowing any kind of a user in any kind of a role, in any kind of a domain, to access the power of AI to do their jobs better. If you think of any role right now, right? Think of a teacher, a doctor, an engineer, somebody who works in retail, somebody who works in a manufacturing plant, somebody who works in banking and finance, whatever role, whatever function, whatever industry, generative AI can make their roles more effective, their jobs more better and faster, more productive as well. So I think, as the term suggests, it generates value and content for us. And I think that's been really a culmination of all the decades of work being done on AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, I was just about to ask what's coming up in Gen. I think both of you have kind of answered that for me. But one learner has this question, very interesting question on whether generative AI will really be able to reach the field of higher level mathematics. Can AI evolve enough to tackle complex and abstract problems? That even the brightest of humans find it difficult to solve. So, what do you think, Nagendra? Is that how GenAI, or is that where GenAI is leading to?
So if you look at AI, we'll come to the question of Gen AI, but if you look at AI, it has already absolutely evolved in many of those spaces, right? Even if I go back to that IBM Watson in a live TV show example,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
even back then, 14 years back,
yeah.
it had very sophisticated ability to solve complex problems. Because if any of you watch Jeopardy, the host asks the question in the form of an answer, and you have to answer in the form of a question. And then you have to strategize in terms of if I pick this category, will I get more money or less money or points, whatever you like to think of it as, right? And Watson did such a phenomenal job of strategizing, answering the questions in the form of a question, understanding the question in the form of an answer, and so on. But I think if you look at how it has evolved today, I think the infrastructure behind it in terms of the chipsets, what we know as GPUs, right? 2011, we were not using GPUs for running AI. The infrastructure has evolved, the ability to process these algorithms in a much faster way has evolved phenomenally. So I think to some extent it's already happening. And if you think of generative AI, specifically the question was generative AI, what it is really, like, in a way, giving you access to the power of AI. So while large language models and what they can do for you might be, like, to some extent limited. Maybe it may not be able to solve some really extremely high sophisticated mathematical equations. It now also has the ability to reach out to other AI technologies and get you your answer, right? So I'm almost beginning to visualize generative AI as an interface now, which has its own intelligence through large language models and continual learning, but also has access to many other powerful AI systems when necessary, when needed. But the
Right.
most important answer I want to kind of end my thought here is these are all systems that are learning constantly, right? They're all
Yeah.
constantly evolving. The biggest advantage of these systems, these AI systems, are that their learning is not static and their learning is not slow. Their learning is not based on some process. It is
Yes.
based on us interacting with it. And I
Correct.
that therefore, very, very possible. If you ask me, kind of already is possible. Maybe generative AI systems are catching up a bit, but AI certainly can do many of these things that the participant asked. Very interesting question. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, yeah. Great. So I think the next question, I know a learner already has this question here. So is about how is Gen AI really impacting or influencing productivity in various industries? So if you could share examples, Abhishek, you did mention oil and gas, of course, which I don't think anybody can think about how AI can influence or help make decisions. But if you could share more use cases on how this is really influencing or impacting industries. Yeah.
Sure. See, there. I think there's not a single industry which is not already impacted by generative AI, because people everywhere are trying to figure out how best to utilize generative AI within their industries and organizations. Right? Um, when GPT or Chat GPT rather became famous after its launch in November of 2022, the first sectors that got disrupted were content creation,
Correct.
because the generation part, the easiest to adopt was to create content. Then slight sophistications like you can make an SEO bot and whatever rule-based systems you can train it on. Uh, the vast amounts of data sets of what works, what doesn't work, what are the guardrails, etc. So that content creation culminated into media, and digital marketing is a field which you cannot think of without generative AI. So any marketer today definitely wants to learn all aspects of AI usage or generative AI usage into digital marketing. So right from how to choose campaigns, how to have the right keywords, how to list organically, SEO on its own. You have agents that can optimize continuously, create new content, keep posting it. So the next step that came was like generation of code. So software development, unless it's a very complex uh, uh, coding at a say infrastructure level, all basic levels of coding, all programming languages. Now you can generate the codes. You can debug your codes if you are a new coder. A lot of co-pilots exist now. So Microsoft has a scope co-pilot, GitHub Copilot always existed. A lot of platforms are coming up, that assist you to learn coding. So these two sectors were the first to get disrupted. Then came the applications of these, so specifically bots. So chatbots for customer service operations. So
Yes.
all that BPO system, call center system, where a user actually has to go call, wait on it to get a result. It's so convenient that if the company providing services or the products has a bot ready, then you can actually just go chat and 70 to 80% of the problems get resolved there itself. That saves a lot of time, is extremely efficient there. The applications in healthcare are again astounding. So the capability of generative AI to churn more and more data, because basic architecture itself enables parallel processing, and that was the reason why large language models could be trained on large model language, right? Probably all the text data set in the world was provided to a system, and that system could process because it had the capability now, and that allows a generative AI or an AI-based system to churn a lot of, say, images. So radiology has been widely disrupted.
Yes.
Uh, so certain use cases are there where an AI system can predict cancer even before normal doctors, normal radiographers can do so. Google recently released its retinopathy-based system, which is a DeepMind output, where using your eye scan, it can predict your gender, it can predict your whether
Wow.
you have diabetes or not, which is being
Wow.
tested. So
Yeah.
the implications are like multiple folds, and not a single industry will be left. When I see manufacturing, because I was pretty close to this industry, so predictive maintenance is now enhanced multiple folds. Your supply chains are optimized, your
Mhm.
risk management factors, your alarm systems.
Yes.
Uh, these are again at a very fast pace. Finance and banking have always been specifically finance, so fraud detection and all these
Yeah.
use cases, that these help finance and financial companies a lot. Now that is taking a very different kind of pace in terms of personalization, because again now the impetus is on providing very personalized solutions for certain kind of customers, because that allows such companies to charge a premium. So I mean, yeah, just name an industry or, or a sector, and we can definitely think of use cases where generative AI is creating ripples, is being widely adopted by people who really want to make a difference and stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, I think you're right here. Nagendra, would you like to add your thoughts as well here? Because you've worked, trained people in various sectors. I'm sure you must be seeing these use cases day in, day out, right?
Certainly. I think Abhishek called out a lot of use cases.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can add to the list that Abhishek
Yes.
kind of nicely called out there, but I would like to share a couple of thoughts around this, right?
Mm.
So if sometimes I get a question that, okay, a lot of these capabilities already existed. So what is generative AI bringing to the table that is new, right? And
Mm.
where I think it's going to make a huge difference, is already making a huge difference, is I'll explain this with a simple example. let's say that we have a lot of data with us, right? Maybe sales data for the last year. And based on that, the organization, their operations team are looking to come up with some forecasts. What kind of sales and can we expect in the upcoming quarter? What kind of supply chain optimization must we do? How should we plan for that? What are some of the risks we see, and so on. Now that capability already existed, but if if you think back to maybe five plus years back, the way that people would go about doing that would be using various tools and technologies. And typically it would take maybe a few days at the very least, couple of weeks, optimally, to come up with maybe the first set of forecasts, and come up with actionable intelligence, right?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about just creating pie charts and spreadsheets, but I'm talking about coming up with actionable intelligence. Now imagine that you are able to provide all this data to a generative AI system, and you don't have to worry about the nitty-gritties of using and learning and using all these other tools that you used to use. Instead, you can just pose a question, what we call as a prompt, right? Saying, here is all my sales data, here is all my operational data, my supply chain data, whatever you're giving it, and then ask a question, can you help me with my sales forecast, my optimizing my inventory, optimizing my pricing based on competitor data, all in the form of a question, and bingo, you get your answers right there, right? So when we talk about productivity, I think this is another very important aspect we need to pay attention to, that a lot of this, sure, we could do it before using various tools and technologies, but none of those matter anymore when you're able to ask the entire thing in the form of a question, right?
Correct. Correct. So I think it just makes your work smarter, which is, I'm sure, a lot of, we don't have questions yet, but a lot of learners might ask, oh, is this job really going to be phased away, or am I not going to be relevant? I don't think that's the case. It's just going to make, every work domain just smarter, or maybe people who work there smarter, right? So that's exactly how our course, the Gen AI for Business Transformation, is designed to kind of help people who work in these various functions to just work smarter, right, Abhishek? So you could just add your thoughts on why, or how this course was exactly built, just some, principles on which we built this course.
Sure, Aparna. So see, when we realize that certain industries and certain functions are getting disrupted, where the adoption is going to be one maximum. So the first rule to follow is, where is maximum funding or investment going, right?
Yeah.
So all your investments are being channeled towards certain functions, and the use cases there. That is where the adoption in the industry would be. That is where the jobs would be affected the most, and the workers in those domains, in those sectors, need to be upgraded or upskilled.
Correct.
So we chose that first, and again, seeing the evolution that I was talking about. So having bots as systems work on certain rules and keep doing the same things, keep doing the same churn again and again, moving on to agents, etc. So this same methodology has disrupted certain functions. So what are the functions that got disrupted? Of course, marketing got disrupted, sales got disrupted,
Yeah.
product management, software development. So now you have generative AI based tools that can help you in every stage of the software development life cycle. Right? Similarly, you have certain applications in UI UX. So the idea is to capture on or capitalize on the latest advancements, and you get some basic intelligence of how systems work, how chatbots work, how automated system works, how agents work, and use those in specific functions where you can improve the productivity.
Correct.
And specifically from a business leader's perspective, if you're leading an organization, or if you aspire to lead an organization in the next few years, you have to be aware of all these solutions. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you would want to improve productivity not just for one function, but for all these different functions.
Yes.
And considering all these aspects, this particular program has been formulated in association with Purdue.
Yeah.
That's how the concentration goes as well.
Yes, I think it's amazing how the course is designed, and helps a learner understand how GenAI can really help in every job role. So we'll talk more about that in a bit. So another question that is relevant to what we just spoke is, so how can organizations, or let's say leaders, the function leaders or people who lead a team, how can they ensure that there's balance between usage of AI and where there's human centric, so where there's a human intervention required, where there's creativity involved. How do they strike that balance? Maybe Nagendra, do you have any thoughts here?
Sure.
Hmm.
Before I answer this question, I also would just like to add a couple of quick things on the previous one, right? Because those thoughts came to mind.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
as a skill, right? As generative AI as a skill, I think is I fast see it becoming a very critical foundational skill that is almost taken for granted. Today, for instance, just to use an example, in most jobs across the world, English language speaking skills and communication skills are taken for granted. It's not something you highlight on your resume typically, right? I think we are getting to that point in the next few months, less than a year and a half, where generative AI skills will be foundational to any role in the world, where you'll be expected to know how to interact with these systems and work with them. And you mentioned maybe there'll be some questions about any jobs getting phased out. And
Yeah.
I would like to call out that generative AI, I think the best way to view it is like a very intelligent, very powerful partner in the room, right? Somebody
Yes.
who's sitting right next to you and helping you do your job better. Somebody who's available 24/7 to you to answer any questions, come up with new deliverables and artifacts for you, and work with you on whatever problem you're trying to solve, right?
Correct.
So I kind of encourage people to think along those lines.
Hmm.
Think about how they're going to get the skill to do their jobs better, because soon it's going to become very foundational, become a baseline, right? Almost.
Correct.
Coming to your question that you asked me about, how will leaders balance the use of AI versus vis-a-vis human intervention? The first thing I'd like to call out is, even as we adopt and use these AI systems increasingly today, there is always one thing to keep in mind. And in fact, even if you log into one of these systems, they will tell you as such, right? That, hey, this system can make mistakes, keep an eye on it, right?
Yes.
That perspective, I think it's very important to remember one, that it's very critical to verify the work, the outcome delivered by these systems. They're
Hmm.
still evolving at a breakneck speed, and
Correct.
we may at one day get to a point where we can blindly trust its outcome, but we are not quite there yet, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Systems can undergo something called hallucinations, where they will
Yes.
very confidently share something with you which they believe to be true, but in reality is not.
That's one.
So the first answer to your question is that I think it's important for humans to take these outcomes and verify it, have some checks and balances in place. So that human intervention and vetting the outcomes is very critical, right?
Hmm.
That's the first part. The second part is that in it, if you look at what I said earlier, as a partner in the room, who will it partner with? It has to partner with human beings, right? We're not quite there yet, although Abhishek briefly talked about agentic AI, which can do end-to-end tasks, right? But we're still in a very rudimentary phase there. So we're not quite there yet where an AI can do something for you end to end. It
Correct.
still needs the human with the domain expertise, with the expertise of that particular
Yeah.
to start up the work, give it structure, give it the path it needs to take to complete the particular task, project, whatever we're trying to do. And along the way, decide which are the aspects that I can use these powerful partners in the room to help me, right? So I would still say it's kind of like a partner that helps you work alongside with you, but still is very much directed by humans and structured by humans. And the creativity part, there is always that. There are a lot of very creative AI systems available today that can come out with beautiful images for you, artwork, even videos, music. I've heard that there are some AI systems that can generate music for you. But again, I think the value for what humans do in these spaces are still way notches exponentially above these AI systems. And so it's always going to be that balance of how to use these systems as a partner rather than take over something end to end. So I don't think we're
Correct.
quite there yet, but I'd
Yeah.
love to hear your thoughts on that as well, Abhishek.
Absolutely, Nagendra. I think you summed it up beautifully. But if I were to tell this in a very simple manner, I would say that anything which is strategic, which has complex decision making, that should remain with the humans. That is how it is currently. Uh, Anything which is repetitive, which needs just a bit of flow, which has to churn a lot of data sets, wherever you have to need some data insights. And as you said, wherever you need an agent to work for you, while I make the decisions as the human in the loop,
Hmm.
that's where the balance would be. Again, no, since you're talking about balancing the AI capabilities and human capabilities and how to work in tandem, uh, very good ways to utilize AI systems is to have come up with say alternative ideas, diversified ideas, play a devil's advocate, test your theories, come up with alternate outputs of your creativity. So if you suddenly come up with your ideas and then you get like, okay, this is this light bulb glowing. Like, this is something I did not think of. That's when the pure collaboration comes in and the best outcomes appear. In fact, I recently saw a couple of friends of mine actually use certain AI tools to brainstorm and test their startup idea. Right? So
Wow.
right from the scratch. So they're using AI to suppose it's an agrotech business. So complete research on agrotech in India, abroad, how AI is being used, what is the funding like, what ideas are working, what's the projection of different ideas. So it kind of builds upon your basic sense, your business sense, your ideas, creates different versions of it, and then you can do okay, testing one, now testing two, testing three. So you should do that entire process, which can never be done, with human beings because human beings have their biases, their
Yeah.
own restrictions, their own boundaries. So an AI system, using it as a friend or companion of yours in every activity can be immensely useful. You just have to know how to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, so can we put it this way? I'm not sure if I'm wording it correctly, but is it like a paid intern because you're still paying for the premium plan? Is it like a smart, really smart paid intern who can think for us? Can we really call Gen AI that?
It's a humorous way of looking at it, except the intern is like, phenomenally smarter and more
Yeah,
capable.
I mean, phenomenally smarter. Smart is an understatement. So we're having a lot of questions around specific job roles on how AI and Gen AI can be used there. So we'll come to that in a while. But the next question that I had was something that you touched upon, when we were talking about how can balance the use of Gen AI. So, what what are potentially, like, I don't think every team faces this, but what are some mistakes that people can make while they're adopting Gen AI? So it can be an individual, from a team or just as a team. What do you see as a common mistake, Nagendra?
Sure. Um, I think more than calling it a mistake, right? I would like to look at it this way.
Hmm.
When you have something very powerful in your hands, right? For example, let's say that you're driving a large and powerful vehicle. You should be careful, right? Because the
Yeah.
large, powerful vehicle can certainly get you places, can help you climb mountains, go through rough territory. But at the same time, if driven recklessly or not with caution, it can lead to unintended consequences as well, right? So
Hmm.
generative AI and AI systems are a bit like that, where they are very powerful, very capable, and we need to understand how best to leverage that power and capability when using them. One of the key things that we need to keep in mind, and perhaps something common that might go wrong as beginners look to use these systems, is we need to remember this phrase, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So
Hmm.
these AI systems, the way they work is whatever data you provide them,
Yeah.
they kind of build off of that. They build off of that, right? So if we're giving data that is not fully baked or does not give the complete picture, and we expect somehow that we'll get a solution to our problem, we may be left confused, right?
Hmm.
The first and the most fundamental thing I would ask, especially beginners, people who are new to working with AI systems, to remember is that the data makes all the difference, right? Whatever data, because how do we set the context to these systems? When we first start interacting with them, how do they know what is our role, what is our organization, what kind of ecosystem do we work in, and then figure out how can I help you, right? So to get there, we have to be cautious about what kind of data might help set the context, what kind of data might be misleading.
Correct.
Kind of connected to that dot dot dot, I know we may have some discussion around it later as well, is be careful about what data you're sharing and whether you have the permission to share the data, right? Because sometimes we may end up sharing customer data inadvertently without their permission, think we are getting to a point where these guidelines, these principles are going to become very formalized and structured. Organizations, even governments are looking to do that. But all in the realm of data. So broadly speaking, my answer to your question in a word is data. But again, two or three different cautionary notes. One is about remember that whatever data you give these systems is what it's going to base its thought process on. And
Yes.
two, remember that whether the data you're providing, you have the permission to provide that data, and whether there is any intellectual property and other concerns around it, whether your organization will be okay with such data being provided to these systems, right? So these
Yes.
are some of the initial cautions I would put on the plate.
Right. Right. I think while we're on the topic of data privacy and the ethical concerns, Abhishek and also Nagendra, maybe just a quick thought that I had. So, is that why? I know it's a controversial question, but is that why DeepSeek is also considered? Well, I mean, people are wary about using DeepSeek. Is that the reason? What do you think, Abhishek? Is that why it's still a little touchy for a lot of people to talk about it or use it?
No, sure. But I see DeepSeek R1 is an amazing model that
Hmm.
has been created using much lesser resources than usually thought of. A lot of data processing, a lot of parallelization,
Yeah.
different architectures have been used. So the model is amazing. So to use the model, you need certain
Mhm.
applications. So the
Yeah.
application is also called a DeepSeek R1. This application, in my knowledge, has certain guardrails built around it. There are certain topics that it doesn't speak about so well.
Mhm.
Unlike all other tools, all other applications, GPTs that we have available. Plus, there are a lot of geopolitical concerns about this,
Correct.
where your data gets stored, how your data will be used. Most of these systems are called black box systems, right?
Yes.
So we don't know the data that you are feeding. How is it being used? You get a response and you're happy with it. But
Mhm.
as Nagendra was mentioning, if you're an organization, you should be very wary of the data, how it is getting processed, what is being done with it, how much secure and private your data set is. Right?
Correct.
So considering all these factors, um, uh, a lot of changes will happen. AI, as Nagendra was earlier mentioning, that this will be an essential skill. Now, once if we acknowledge this and if we know this, of course, the world political leaders do as well. So this has the capability to change everything, every system, and that's why data centers are again projected to grow at an exponential space going ahead.
Mhm.
Every country will work on their own foundation models, their own specialized models, their own data centers. And the earlier people know about how these systems operate, how an LLM actually works, how to keep your data secure, uh, how to build capabilities around it, the better it is for everyone.
Right. So Nagendra, what are your thoughts on the whole DeepSeek topic and debate?
Um, I think Abhishek covered it very, very well. He put it in a nice nutshell. I don't know if I have a lot of additional data points there. I
Yeah.
do. I have read and I have talked to a couple of my colleagues who are in touch with the government cybersecurity experts
Mhm.
who have issued some caution, right, about
Right.
certain cybersecurity concerns within the use of these models. But other than that, the innovative quotient of how they have done it and how they consume less resources is talked about a lot. So it's quite impressive. But
Mhm.
as with all these systems, I think we should always understand them a little better
Yeah.
before we jump fully into using them end to end.
Right, right. So another concern that we may have, apart from, of course, privacy, is there's also a lot of bias sometimes, that these models may bring with them. So how can a team really handle that? Especially, I think this is true for teams that analyze a lot of data, or it could just be the analytics team in a certain organization. So how do we really handle that, or mitigate that risk of bias? Again, I would like to hear from you, Nagendra, first, and then maybe
Sure.
Abhishek can add. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. I think it's a very important topic, very critical.
Mhm.
As we go past the initial excitement, get past the initial excitement of
Yeah.
using these systems, understanding what they can do for us,
Yes.
and basically that wow factor is beginning to set in, right? The
Correct.
thing we should pay attention to is what kind of data are we feeding these systems and what kind of outcomes will that dictate? Now,
Hmm.
biases in data are not easy to detect, right? That's the hard part. Some are very easy. Okay, we see that there's not enough data for this aspect of our organization or this type of role or this type of a vendor or this type of an employee. But by and large, biases are not overt discrimination we are talking about,
Right.
but subtle gaps or imbalances in the data. For instance, let's say that I'm going to upload some data about vehicles, right? Automobiles. And let's say that 85% of the data are looking at petroleum or gasoline based engines, and 15% of the data is based on diesel based engines, right?
Mm.
Now, without realizing what we are doing is we are providing this data to an AI system that might believe that, okay, I need to provide 85% more weightage to petroleum-based engines in my outcomes than the 15% diesel engines, which appear to be an outlier, right? Now, you can use the petroleum and diesel kind of analogy for anything in the world. I'm just using it as an example. So what we need to do is we need to figure out special ways to make sure that our data is more balanced as we provide data to these systems. Else, we may start noticing a bias which we did not intend to, nor did the AI system intend to, but it's just based on the fact that our data set was imbalanced. So one of the things we can do, for instance, is something I often tell my learners in many of the Simplilearn courses that I'm a part of, that generative AI has the capability to generate synthetic data for you. So we can always use generative AI to add to our existing data sets to bring in that balance using synthetic data, especially if you're doing something around testing, learning, forecasting, and so on, and balance the data set better before providing it to these systems, right? Again, that's oversimplifying it. I know we just have a few minutes to talk about it. There's a lot more to this than what we just talked about here. But by and large, my overall note of caution is that make sure that the data we are providing is well balanced, because these imbalances are what lead to biases, and sometimes these biases are not very visible, and it
Correct.
takes takes some specialized understanding of the data before we realize that this may create a bias, right? And
Mm.
also an understanding of how the AI system may end up using this data. So we
Yeah.
need to connect the dots a little, and that's why I believe organizations' data strategy and AI strategies are joined in the hip, right? I don't think we can have an isolated data strategy and an isolated AI strategy anymore. Those two really need to kind of be joined in the hip and feed off each other. But Abhishek, would love to hear your thoughts as well.
That was very well put, again. That's so enlightening for me as well. I totally agree with that. And the analogies that you gave, that actually applies to so many known cases if you just change the context. So, one aspect that I feel is very important is to build in the governance frameworks. How a lot of organizations are working on it, but everything is working in silos as of now. So, you have the European Union AI Act that kind of builds a framework to be used in the entire Europe. However, that doesn't drill down, or that doesn't percolate to an operational level. It's just a framework can be used in several ways. The regulations are still developing. In the US, it had its own risk management framework by Nest, which is the most popular framework. And if you combine all of these, of all the frameworks that are being devised worldwide, you realize that, okay, the intent or the idea is to ensure that you've thought of everything, you have a
Correct.
review mechanism for everything, you have a human in the loop, you're getting the right feedback, and you are keeping your algorithm transparent, right? So it's not a black box. You know what is happening. You can explain why certain things emerged, why certain things did not emerge. So
Correct.
going ahead, I foresee that similar to the centers of excellence that big organizations used to establish specifically for business transformation or digital transformation, similar frameworks or governance bodies will emerge that will totally lead the AI governance part. And that will take care of whatever Nagendra said, completely diverse data sets,
Mm.
synthetic data sets to test stuff,
Yeah.
removing the biases, checking it, regular audits, etc., etc. Again, this is just a gut feel. That's where I can foresee things to be
Mm.
moving. Uh,
Mm.
Time will tell how well it is implemented.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree, Abhishek.
Right, 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 right. So just switching gears to coming back to the, impact or the wow factor that Nagendra mentioned. So it is now clear and, as to what we should be careful about, how it can really positively impact, how a team functions. So is there a way someone or say a team lead or even an individual for that matter, can measure or just put a number to how much productivity someone can increase? Is there a way we can do that, Nagendra?
Um, sure. I think it depends on the context of the organization. I gave you a number in the very beginning, right? That my
Yeah,
observation about
40%.
a 40% increase in productivity. Part of that was my own observation, right? I run a small business among many other things that I do. And many of the tasks we do together as a small business team, when we've started bringing generative AI as a partner in the room for those tasks, we are clearly noticing a market boost in productivity, right? So some of the numbers come from there. But a very simple example is many of the customers that I work with in their IT departments or being software development being a core part of their business are beginning to use these code assistants, right? Like a GitHub Copilot or an Amazon Q or Code Whisperer, what have you. And what these do is as the developer is writing their code, and I'm just using this as an example, it can be applicable to any domain, depending on the context and how you measure productivity there. But as they're writing their code, often we need to write some functions, some methods, which don't necessarily have a direct bearing on the business logic or the creative factor that the developer is bringing in on solving a complex problem, but are helper functions or things that need to be done, take time but need to be done, right? For instance, if it's a banking application and there's a loan that's being repaid, well, depending on how many installments that have been paid, how many have not been paid, calculate the interest. What's the interest that we are going to get back to the customer with? It's a very standard function, doesn't require any lot of innovation and creativity, but it takes time to do it because you need to understand what are the input numbers we're getting, how do we figure this for different situations for different customers. So
Right.
imagine now if you can share that as a prompt with these systems and they can come back to you in a minute or less with the entire code that you can test and plug into your code, right? So the productivity there is phenomenal. So how would you measure the productivity? How do you put a number against it? It comes down to this, right? Especially in a world where we are all working as in an agile fashion. What do we typically deliver in 2 weeks as a sprint, maybe an iteration, if a sprint is not a familiar term to you? I'm taking 2 weeks as an example. What do we measure? What do we deliver in that quantum of time? And how much, what are we now able to deliver in the same quantum of time with these systems in place, right? So I just explained using software development as an example, but every domain, every role, every function can look at how this is increasing productivity. Another quick example perhaps could be around for HR organizations looking to acquire talent, right? Looking to acquire talent. If they are now able to use generative AI for many of the tasks that they do in terms of
I think uh, I think he'll just be back. Maybe his screen froze.
Sure, let's wait for Nagendra to come back.
Yeah.
But I totally echo what Nagendra mentioned here,
Hmm.
Aparna. So,
Yeah.
see, it boils down to the same frameworks, how to evaluate or assess whether AI was useful for you once you've
Yeah.
adopted it. So, basically, the parameters remain the same. It's just like time, cost, and quality. So,
Correct.
if you can measure how much cost did you save,
Hmm.
how much time did you save, and how much did you improve your quality of output, that kind of sums it up. And Agnes back in.
Yeah, Nagendra is back.
I don't know where I got dropped. Apologies. Looks like I got kicked out, but I'm back now. Did you
Yeah.
want to complete my thought or
Yeah, of course. Please, please.
Okay. And as I was saying, did I come to the HR example before I got dropped?
Yes, you did. Yes, yes.
So I was saying that now these HR talent acquisition part of HR can now start measuring how fast are we able to bring on the right talent on board compared to before we started using generative AI, right? So every organization, every role, every function can start looking at before and after generative AI, what kind of productivity, what kind of boost to our way of working to achieving our outcomes ultimately are we able to do?
Mhm. Got it. Got it. Great. I think to just, the last big question that I'm sure a lot of people also have, they've not posted it directly, but when they ask how GenAI is relevant to, my job role, is how does one really get ready? What kind of skills, or maybe to start with, if you could also mention tools to use, and maybe common use cases like, say, coding or data analytics, or you could also be starting a business, like Abhishek said. So, what are some skills, Abhishek, that people should gain? Some tools, if you can name them.
Sure, but again, it's very context oriented.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
But every use case you have like several tools that can help you achieve a lot of work. Uh, the first thing that you should do is understand your problem statement. AI or generative AI at the end of the day is a tool. It's a mechanism for you to streamline things and deliver more and more output with better quality, right? So
Right.
if and you always need domain experts. So traditionally, even when typical AI systems or machine learning models or different models were built, you definitely need a domain expert to guide you. Okay, this is how things operate. This is what you're trained on. This is what you're supposed to do. Right? So the first thing is to understand what your role is and what are the advancements that are possible. And then you choose the right tools. So there's no specific answer for this, but say software development. So within the software development life cycle itself, you have different kinds of roles, right? And all those roles, you can go to any AI marketplace, you will find several tools there. There are tools that you can take subscription on. There are tools that you can use for free. There are tools you can buy. The premium or the premium versions of. Most of the things can be done by your normal GPTs. So Perplexity, Chat GPT, DeepSeek, all these models are trained on vast amounts of data for all normal usages. These tools definitely help you. If you need any specific tools, you should first understand what is the benefit of those tools over all these generic foundation models. And if you have a very niche kind of a role, uh, does it help you to adopt a certain tool, and can you afford it? Again, those are various questions. So no question here has a very plain and simple answer. Few of the tools already, I think Nagendra also mentioned about GitHub Copilot and several things happening on the go. But for every use case, you can always find multiple tools, multiple ways to do stuff. There are several automation mechanisms to take care of such things. uh, I would sum it up as know your problem statements first, understand how AI systems, LLMs, automation systems work, then build the next steps on it. Like, okay, this is how various problems can be solved. For solving those problems, you'll have to decide whether you build or buy, whether you build your own automation systems by using, say, LLM API calls or you use certain tools, and then how to prioritize which of the tasks do you take first. Uh, Measure those using the KPIs that we were discussing just before this, and arrive at a final result. So it's more like how to AI. It's just a complete thought process. It's a complete framework. Uh, and in this framework, you'll also have to assess what is your capability set. Do you have any background in coding in case it's a low code solution that you're working on? Otherwise, you'll have to go for a completely no code solution, which is more like graphics, dropping things together, combining, and then assessing, which is expensive. So
Right.
three aspects to it, but there's a complete framework that you should follow. Precisely that is what we've built in the course as well. There are certain use cases, the case studies where you do not only understand how AI systems work, but also how to have a framework of your own and implement that framework in adopting AI to the best possible use case.
Right, right. Got it. So Nagendra, just to add to, the use cases that Abhishek mentioned. So what about in the non-tech facing roles, let's say in agile or project management, where it's more around being smart with how you can, ensure that teams are on time in terms of quality or in terms of cost. So all of these roles, which are non-tech essentially, what do you think there? How should one really keep up with this technology?
Certainly. I think a lot of it is already happening. I think many agile practitioners, project managers, scrum masters, and such are realizing that if we begin to use generative AI as a partner in the room, the amount of work we can get done, the kind of deliverables we can bring out as an outcome from our team, our organization, will be phenomenally better. So I think you can boil it down to this, right? Any role, whether it's a tech role, non-tech role, whether it is in project management or agile practitioners, scrum masters, product owners, somebody who's designing products, whatever we do, if you are able to boil it down to one aspect that can be provide some meaningful data to set the context, the rest these systems can do for you, right? So it's all about boiling it down to, if you have some context that you can set for these systems in the form of data, and this data can be anything, need not be only numbers, because often when we think of data, we think of vast sets of data like spreadsheets, databases, and so on. Sure, those are also a possibility, but data can even be images, like emails from your feedback from your customer, emails from amongst your team members, how your team works together. So in the like your data can be around collaboration between your teams. Data can be around problem solving. Data can be around quality. There can be all types of data. If you are able to get your hands on the data and use it to give context to these generative AI systems, the outcomes that it can deliver, the potential is like the sky is the limit, right? So I would boil it down to just that one thing. Think about what data can you provide these systems that can set the context, and the rest is magic.
Right, great. So I think with that, let's get to some questions, but also ask the audience this question as to what is that one thing they'd need to upskill in, or what is that one thing that they will need for gaining this knowledge about generative AI. And then we just also head to a lot of questions around how Gen AI is relevant to the various job roles. So I'm just launching a poll, guys, and people watching us on LinkedIn and YouTube, let us know what's that one thing you will need to upskill in Gen AI, whether it's a course that you're looking for with a comprehensive curriculum, or whether it's understanding how you can use these skills practically, or whether you don't know the right strategy to adopt and use Gen AI in your job. Whatever your reason is, just let us know your answers on the live chat. Right. But it was great, having this interesting conversation, Nagendra and Abhishek. So I know Nagendra is hard pressed for time. He might not be able to, answer all your questions, but we surely have Abhishek who can take these questions. But Nagendra, just quick closing thoughts before you have to leave. Anything that you would like to add to what we discussed?
No, thank you. First off, thank you very much, Aparna, for having me here. I think it's always wonderful to be part of forums like this, talking about such an exciting new paradigm in our
Yep.
world, in our societies even. And Abhishek, it's been like a pleasure being a kind of a co-panelist with you. It's always great to hear thoughts from experts such as you. Closing thoughts, I would leave it at this. Think about your roles and think about how do you future-proof your roles today, right? Whatever role you're doing, whatever expertise you're gaining, how do you future-proof your careers? And I think the answer today to that is learn to use AI as a partner in the room, right? And to do that, I think there are many opportunities you can do that with. And if you're unclear on how to do that, I think platforms such as Simplilearn can guide you, give you guidance on what's the next best step for you and such. But ultimately, look to future-proof your careers with this one very foundational, one very critical skill. I believe all roles will need to have in the future. So we live in exciting times, and I wouldn't look at this as a threat or something to be afraid of. I would certainly encourage all of us to look at this as an amazing opportunity for us to get better at whatever excites us, whatever passion we have. So thank you very much. I'll stick around maybe to see if there are a couple of questions I can answer up and now, but at some point I may drop off.
No,
Thank
no.
you all very much.
Yeah, yeah. So
Thank
just
you,
one
Abhishek.
question though, we have this one question from a software engineering student who has this question. If everything is going to be taken over by AI, what kind of languages this person needs to learn to survive? I'm sure we have answered that, but just to uh, answer just one question.
So this is the same thing I would tell any role, not just a software engineer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think what kind of programming languages and tools you need to learn is not a function of AI necessarily. It's more about what's current in the market, what's contemporary, what kind of solutions are software engineering firms building, what kind of technologies are coming together. So I would encourage all of you not to think of AI as a threat that is taking over everything, and therefore we need to be looking at something radically different.
Correct.
There are two aspects to that. One is that your role will become more value added, as Abhishek mentioned a couple of times in the beginning of today's session. So therefore, we may not be doing some of the more menial aspects of our role as much, because generative AI systems can do that very easily for us. But most importantly, the second aspect that I've emphasized on a couple of times, look at generative AI as a partner in the room, right? So
Correct.
therefore, that does not preclude any specific programming language, tool, or technology. whatever work you're doing it can help you with that. So that's the way to look at it.
Right. Got it. Thanks so much, Nagendra. I wish you could stay longer, but yeah, it was great hosting you once again. I'll see you.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Nagendra. It's just very enriching.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. Same here, Abhishek.
Start.
Thanks all
Thanks.
very much.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Right. So Abhishek, we just have one more question on, this is a slightly different question around CAD, which is computer-aided design. So can GenAI help engineers to design more effectively with CAD? Maybe you could shed some thoughts there.
See, CAD is a very specialized sector, right?
Yeah.
But again, generative AI has the capability of um, enabling people by joining a lot of data and providing certain frameworks. I am aware, since I also worked in real estate, and a lot of work used to happen on a tool called AutoCAD there. I get to know from my colleagues, my ex-colleagues there, that you have certain algorithms being built into these tools that can generate designs based on specific specifications, right? So how I see this is, suppose there is a system which is trained on all kinds of a design that a particular sector designer works on, right? So in that case, it is definitely possible. I know that Autodesk has algorithms in its latest model, and it generates the user defined specification and places those into a design. So this is about generation of designs, but where I think GenAI will make maximum difference would be in rapid iteration, right?
Yeah.
So that's a capability that these systems have, and once you have an AI model that is actually generating those designs, you can very easily reiterate again based on certain changes in specifications that would ideally take traditionally if a human being is working on it a lot of time. So that is where things would work. And these kind of designs are already being formulated by certain companies, say in the aviation space. So Airbus and Boeing. I read few reports there where such AI capabilities are allowing for real-time feedback. So making decision making very faster, certain kind of specifications and outputs that the only experts could tell. Now you have an AI system giving you a design and summarizing things.
Right.
So this will speed up everything, the entire process, the entire value chain there.
Correct.
And you have certain tools, so Autodesk, certain tools by Siemens. So all these design tools have AI algorithms built in, although I have never experienced this firsthand, but this is what I've heard from people who very often use it.
Right. Great. I think this is one use case that we didn't cover, but the others, about product design, about software development, about project management, I think we've covered pretty much all use cases in today's discussion. One interesting question from someone who's an executive chair in a multinational. He just wants to understand what AI related trainings he needs to know or he needs to develop, and how he can utilize AI in helping decision making for himself and for the team. I think these are two questions, but firstly on the training bit. So how does he really go about implementing trainings for his various teams?
Yeah, Pranav, I'm sure. This is a question that, so while doing our research and formulating the courses, I spoke to several industry leaders. I keep doing that time and often. And most of the leaders come up with the problem statement: I really want to adopt AI. I don't know how to do that. So what do I do? Do I hire somebody to execute everything? Or do I learn this myself and start implementing it? This is a very common question that the senior leaders have. And these senior leaders, the only skill that they need to know is how to AI, to understand how an AI system operates, how to create frameworks around it, how to roll out the pilot products or pilot projects. And before that, probably how to prioritize the right kind of projects. Because in any organization, if you were to go and speak to different functions, as an expert of what roles they do, map out their workflows, and the expert can actually tell you, okay, these are the possibilities. And even if it's a very small scale firm, the number of such possibilities would go in hundreds and beyond, right? Then how do you arrive at those use cases? Then you start prioritizing it based on your parameters, your outcome, how much time, how much money, how you want to invest, what
Yeah.
sort of skills would be required there. How
Mm.
would you roll out a pilot? What would be the KPIs for that? Then how do you roll it out full-fledged? How do you test it so that it doesn't disrupt your usual workflows?
Correct.
And most of all, it's like, how do you build that cultural change in your organization? Because the moment you go and speak to anyone about how can we use AI in your function or in your role, the first thought process of that person is whether I'm getting replaced. So
Yes.
so
Yeah.
that's where the top leadership, the top brass comes into picture. It's similar to how digital transformation used to happen a decade ago. Right? It's just that you need to have a very comprehensive framework and understanding of where maximum impact comes from, and
Correct.
then just roll it out like an pure AI consulting assignment.
Yeah, what we spoke about, what you mentioned about time, how much time is spent in a task and how can that reduce, how can it improve quality or reduce cost? Maybe, look at functions that actually have this impact, and then go about, training those teams. Great, great. Thanks for answering that, Abhishek. And we also have poll responses. A lot of them have answered this question. Let me share this result that either they don't have the practical exposure to use this in their job, or they're still looking for the right course to upskill in Gen AI, right? Which is where I think when we mentioned about the generative AI for business transformation course in collaboration with Purdue University, we mentioned that this course has, the right mix of curriculum and also the right kind of assessments in order to make sure that they're ready to implement and use Gen AI, right? So we'll talk about the course curriculum in a bit, but just to take you learners through the key features of the course. The one most important aspect of this course is that you get access to live masterclasses from Purdue faculty and staff, right? And you also, as a part of being an alumni of this course, you get access to Purdue Alumni Association. You gain access to the membership of the Alumni Association at Purdue, right? And of course, the outcome that you can expect out of this course is that you will see what impact you can drive with Gen AI in your job role. Yeah. And we will just see that through and how you can do that through curriculum. So a lot of you have questions around how can I use Gen AI to drive impact in a so-and-so role. Someone asked a question around operations. Someone from LinkedIn had that question. So we'll just understand that through the curriculum. But someone also had this question around, should I really learn coding? Not really. So if you see our cohort, the learners from the recent cohort we've got learners from across different domains, not just the IT sector, right? So it also means that this is relevant to anyone who's looking to drive impact through their role and just become better and smarter at their jobs, right? So we'll just see how the curriculum is built and how maybe Abhishek, you can take them through what they will learn in this course. And I think through this, a lot of questions around how their job role is becoming better will also be answered.
Sure, Aparna.
Yeah,
So this course is structured so that you need not have any prerequisite coding knowledge or programming knowledge or statistics understanding. You can always build from the scratch. So the program first makes you AI literate. It tells you everything about AI, the evolution, how generative AI has evolved, what are the capabilities, what are the features, so how to use the open source models, how to use the paid models, etc.
yeah,
And then it moves into workflow automation. So workflow automation, as I was telling you, one great way to figure out or narrow down on what you want to do is to map out all your workflows, right?
right,
Once you have all your workflows, and then you take one workflow at a time and assess it based on how useful would it be. If you were to invest into that workflow, what is the ROI that you get? Right? And
right,
what are the
right.
different methods and different tools that you use for creating workflows? So you have solutions ranging from, say, Zapier or Make, and you also have certain additions, certain new tools which are making a lot of buzz, such as Gumdo. So you get an idea about all such workflow automations. There are certain demos and workarounds where you go ahead and create your own workflow automations. So, and those could be very simple use cases like automating responses to your emails, or certain maybe a second degree of workflows where you're automating blog posts, or there's a certain workflow that required a sequence of 3 or 4 actions, and how do you make that into a 4-step workflow automation using such tools.
Right, right.
So this kind of gives you all the basic intelligence about how AI works and how things can be automated. And then we get into certain functions like software development, sales, marketing, customer support, product development, UI, UX, etc. So across all these functions within your organization, what are the top tools? And one prominent use case from the industry, which is a very recent use case. So suppose you had to take up that use case, which is a real life use case implemented by some company that gave them the maximum ROI. Then how do you think about it? How do you go about creating a framework and executing it? And this is where you'll learn how to AI, right? How to implement, execute, what KPIs to monitor, how to build the capabilities within your team, what to outsource, what to do in-house, etc., across all these functions.
Yes.
And of course, we discussed a lot about biases and ethics. So that is one module that every mid to senior leader should know, all these understandings about frameworks, ethics, bias, data cleaning, what are the impacts. This program also has a module by AWS. So AWS is one of the most widely used cloud systems. So a lot of people would be actually working on those systems. Their organizations may have this AWS implemented. So generative AI for executives, which is a module by AWS, that also comes as part of this course. And then you have master classes where we have faculty from Purdue who bring in use cases on their research papers, what they've been working on, what publications they are making. So this kind of encompasses a lot of hands-on information, a lot of basic knowledge, specific knowledge to the domains and sectors, what's going on in the industry and what's going on in the academy. This is how we formulated this particular program.
Right. Great. I think this encompasses a lot of use cases. And I think the second module, which is around workflow automation, I think this will give a lot of people insight on how their job role is going to get better. Right. Because a lot of questions, I think 10, 15 questions around how can I use GenAI in this role, right? So I think this module is the answer to that. And of course, academic masterclasses from Purdue, and I mean, I think the credential Purdue itself is going to make a huge difference on their resume. Of course, they can showcase it to their organization, or whether they want to switch jobs. It's definitely going to help them here immensely, right? So that's how the curriculum prepares you in not exactly mastering, but also becoming aware of how GenAI, what capabilities that GenAI has, right? So you can also take a look at the curriculum. I will share the link to the course shortly. Meanwhile, if you guys have questions, please make sure you use the Q&A box, apart from the ones that we've already answered. Let's say you do have questions, please do use the Q&A box here. So can you throw some light on these tools as well? I saw a question around, could you name some AI tools that this person can use for research, right? But of course, I'm sure a lot of AI tools can be used across various job roles, various use cases. So maybe just some light on these tools and how they'll help someone.
So, Aparna, so these are the tools that have been specifically used as examples within the program.
Yeah.
So they kind of give you details about certain functions and specific use cases. But along with these, there are several other tools which are also provided as references. And I think, out of those tools, most of these questions would be answered, right? So somebody had asked about some research work. That's what somebody wants to publish a paper, and where do you research it?
Yeah.
So if I have to research anything so that I do a research strong enough or solid enough to publish a paper, I typically use Perplexity and I use Storm. Now, Storm is a portal that has been created specifically for research by Stanford. So and so you can expect that level of detail there. So again, these are depictive tools with certain demonstrations, certain use cases. But as you go into further nitty-gritties and you know how to use these tools, we keep providing and adding on the tools for specific solutions.
Wow. Right, right. So I think they also have this opportunity to interact with trainers and also their peers through the learning platform that we offer. So once you are a part of the course, you get access to more than 50 hours of live interaction with the trainers, and also you get an opportunity to learn. And so this is basically, a co-learning environment sort of. So you don't just have a unidirectional way of communication. You obviously will understand how another person is going to use the same tool differently, right? So it's going to add a lot of value to you if you become part of this cohort, right? So just moving ahead, if you can just highlight broadly what outcomes one can expect. Of course, understanding Gen AI fundamentals is definitely one, and obviously hands-on learning, the tools that we have. What else can one expect to learn at the end of the course?
The biggest learning would be how to execute a Gen AI product which has very high ROI from the scratch.
Yeah.
And that is based on real world use cases. Uh, you evaluate certain options? How do you go ahead with the projects and to roll those out? We believe that this learning is way better than a very concentrated learning that keeps on getting limited, because the pace at which AI is expanding or evolving, most
Yeah.
of the tools kind of phase out after 6 months. And that is
Correct.
why we keep adding to these courses. This course itself, a lot of additions have happened recently, where we add newer modules. So something that was not on the slides yet, but will be a part of the programs, is understanding the generative AI tech stack. So
Mhm.
the traditional tech stack uh, has its shell life, which AI
Yeah,
will
of
definitely
course.
displace.
Yeah.
So if you're creating a generative AI app, you need to understand how that stack is built, what
Yeah.
happens in different layers of the stack, where do you need to operate in, where does your solution fit in, or
Correct.
is it a comprehensive solution that utilizes most of the levels or layers of the stack? So there's several such additions that keep on happening. uh, the idea or the intent behind this entire course is for any mid to senior level executive to think AI, to speak AI, to be aware of most of the applications. And given any real case scenario within the organizations, they would be able to execute a project or lead a project end to end.
Yeah, I think that's amazing as to how this course can actually help them with the gap that a lot of learners mentioned, that they don't know how to apply these skills practically. A lot of learners have this question about the webinar certificate. We launched the poll towards the end. We're just getting done with talking to you about the course. A few more aspects of the course before we head to the certificate poll, of course, is what you get out of the course is also the learning. I mean, what you get as a part of the course is the learning environment. So you get access to an LMS. That is, of course, you can log in, check your progress anytime, and also access your course end assessments for each of the modules that we mentioned. And towards the end, you can also unlock your certificate. Now, I know we are running short of time, so I'll just quickly show you how this looks like. But of course, you will be able to access this once you become part of the cohort. So you can check, the exact learning path that we mentioned, and once you complete a certain set of, the learning module here, you also have access to completing tests. Towards the end of the whole program, your certificate is unlocked if you fulfill this condition. Basically, 39 hours of learning and then pass any 4 tests from the different courses. Now, these tests are fairly simple. So if you're already experienced and have worked in any of these job roles, you should be able to pass the test. It's kind of straightforward that way, right? So you also have access to 24/7 support, and you can ask questions about your progress, reach out to our support team, let them know if you have a concern in completing the course or whatever that can be, right? So let's say you miss a class, you also have access to the recordings. Okay, so this is what you get along with all that we just mentioned. You could also check out some testimonials from our past learners. Now, these testimonials are also added and available on the course page, which I'll share to you in a while. But you should be able to read these, check these profiles out, and understand what these learners have gained. Right. So this is just a gist of what the course offers. Now that you understand the whole details, let me just ask you this quick question. If you're interested in enrolling in the course, you can select a yes. And let's say you're watching us on LinkedIn or YouTube. If you're interested in the course, please make sure you check the video description. You will find the link to the course there. You can go there and submit your details, and you should be reached out by a learning advisor. If you're watching us on Zoom and let's say you have selected a yes, you can expect a call from a learning advisor in the next 12 to 24 hours. If you live in India, of course, you will receive a call tomorrow morning. If you live in the US, in the next few hours, you should be receiving a call. The learning advisor will basically take you through the entire course, help you understand how it's going to be relevant, going to help you. And then you can make a decision becoming a part of our next cohort, right? So like Abhishek mentioned earlier, you don't have to be from the tech background per se, but we prefer people who have more than 5 years of work experience. Of course, eagerness to leverage Gen AI. That's one thing that we look out for in our learners. So if you meet these eligibility criteria, the admissions team should reach out to you, help you understand the enrollment steps, the next steps, and then you become a part of the cohorts. Just to put it very simply, once you select a yes here or have filled up an application on the course page, you should be reached out by the admissions team. They'll just screen you for these parameters, and then you are, once you're in, they will help you with the enrollment steps as well, right? So I did mention that you could, I'll give you the link to the course page. You can do that right here. Scan the QR code. If you're watching us on LinkedIn and YouTube as well, it's just easier to do this. Scan this QR code and understand everything about the course. You can download the course syllabus and also check the financing options available in either India or US or wherever, whichever country you're a part of. So this is the fee. The course fee is INR 1,20,000. So you also get this option to pay with monthly installments of 5,373 per month, or if you are in the US, $250 a month, right? So we strive to make it affordable to you, so upskilling shouldn't be a burden. We make sure that we offer you financing options as well. So if you want to check out these options and understand more about the course, you should definitely scan this QR code. And also you have an option to download the syllabus, view it at your convenience, and also reach out to us later. Yeah. But if you have selected a yes, you can be rest assured that someone will reach out to you. Yeah. So while we leave this poll on for people to express their interest, you can do that in the next couple of minutes. Let me see if we have more questions. Yeah, I think someone had, Shiva has a question around, whether, so we talked about data privacy, the ethical concerns around using GenAI. So is it going to happen that, AI will GenAI really hack email or bank accounts, let's say in a banking or a financial setup? Will that happen with GenAI? I'm not sure. Yeah, this was a question that came around on the chat box.
And which is a very valid question, right? When you provide the power to certain individuals, they'll use it the way they want to. And of course, the number of cybersecurity attacks, frauds is increasing tremendously because people who earlier did not know anything about it now have coding power, say, for example.
Correct.
Or they can create certain code, certain images, embed. They can learn about nefarious activities, although that is restricted to a great extent built within the systems. But information is now ubiquitous, right? It's just everywhere. But so are the powers to fight against it. So cybersecurity firms are using AI and generative AI to kind of identify such schemes very fast and take action on it. Most of the usual commonplace attacks are now can be easily flagged and prevented. So it goes both ways, right? It's a double-edged
Right.
sword. It totally depends on how you or how an individual would want to use it and how
Yeah.
good it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a quick reminder to the learners here, another minute and we will close the poll for taking, your interest in this very elaborate and interesting program. So if you're looking forward to be a part of the next cohort, please select a yes. And we've also shared the course fee for your convenience so that you understand how much you would have to spend out of your pocket in order to be a part of the course, right? So please select a yes in case you are still interested. In case you are exploring, you're still not sure, please scan the QR code. Take a look at what the learners have to say. Take a look at who the program advisors and the trainers are. And, I'm sure you'll understand the value that you'll gain out of this course, right? Okay. Another question that I think we can take up, Abhishek, is the use of GenAI in the pharmaceutical industry. So how can one use GenAI in say research, R&D of in the pharmaceutical world? So how do you see that happening?
See, drug discovery has been expedited to a great extent. There are certain companies now they are rolling out solutions or certain drugs at much faster pace
Mm,
because so what happens in drug discovery, as per my limited understanding, is that you create different molecular structures, right?
mm,
And see how it works in biological setups, right? Now, the moment you are creating these new structures and generative AI basically generates, right? So it can be trained to create new molecular structures very fast. It can screen for certain uh, compounds, certain use cases, right?
right.
Uh, Now it has to
Mm,
be tested, so you can leverage synthetic data generation for testing these new drugs, and you can have a lot of modeling done. You can create hypotheses. So this is my understanding of how a pharmaceutical or drug discovery system works. But these are the use cases that I could think off the hand immediately.
absolutely. Great, great. Thanks so much, Abhishek, for answering all these questions patiently. So we'll just put an end to the poll here. And okay, a lot of people, more than 70% of you said that you were interested in, being a part of the next cohort. Uh, we'll make sure that a learning advisor reaches you and helps you understand the enrollment steps, right? So let us know. I'm sure a lot of positive, messages you guys have sent how you loved the interaction and how you found the webinar amazing. But we would still like to understand how you would rate us and let us know how you would like us to do better. Or maybe if you have inputs for us for another webinar on the same topic, we'd love to know that as well. So just quickly give us, uh, a rating and let us know. Or maybe, actually let us know what you would like us to cover next. If you guys can also let us know on the chat, maybe. Say, if you have inputs for the next Gen AI webinar, what would you like to know? It's going to be interesting to see the responses. Great. Yes. People asking about recording to this session. It is available on our YouTube channel, but please expect an email, a follow-up email to all the people who attended. You will receive an email containing the link to watch the recording along with the webinar certificate. Yeah, so you will receive that in the next 24 hours. You can expect an email from us. Okay? Yes. But for someone looking to watch the recording, let me see if I can pull up the YouTube stream link so that you guys can do that right away. It also streamed on LinkedIn. We also actually are streaming on LinkedIn. So you can check out Simplilearn's LinkedIn page as well. But yeah, let me do this right away. Let me close the chat box down so that, don't miss the link. Sorry, here we go. Yes. Yes. Great, great. Thank you so much for being kind with your ratings. Glad to see a lot of you giving us 5 and 4. It was lovely hosting you as well, and seeing all the questions that you guys asked. It just showed how curious and eager you were to learn about this technology. I think that tells a lot about how you're willing to learn new things, right? So just one last quick thing. If you guys are interested in getting the webinar certificate as well, please make sure you enter your full name as how you would like it to be displayed on the certificate. So please make sure you do that on the poll. Again, people watching us on LinkedIn and YouTube, if you're wondering how you can get a webinar certificate, all you can do is email us with your full name, your email ID. Of course, your email ID is there, but yeah, the full name on webinars@simplilearn.net. Webinars@simplilearn.net. That's the email ID. Give us your full name and then we'll send you a certificate separately. But people on Zoom, please use the poll. Great. I think this we're also done answering a lot of questions. Abhishek, do you have any closing thoughts before we end?
Yeah, sure. There's a very interesting question. I was just typing the response to it.
Yeah.
About the Gartner's hype cycle of
Yes. Yes.
how the hype cycle goes and then it dips, but it does come back, right? Plus, all these hype cycles were never meant for a technology that grows so fast. So eventually, it will be a factor of how much practical benefit everyone can achieve out of AI, and that is how fast this dip will go away. So far, it doesn't seem to have any impact on the demand, and neither will it, because now we are kind of preponing the projections. So initially, the projections for an AGI to be achieved, which is an artificial general intelligence as good as the humans or slightly better, that was 2028, 29. But if you listen to the world leaders who are making this groundbreaking AI changes, they say it could be just 2 years away. So the speed of evolution and the practical benefits that AI is providing, that will decide a cycle, and probably a very new cycle will emerge. That's my hypothesis, and we'll see how true it stands with time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question to ask. Someone has really researched well on the topic when asking that question. It was great hosting you as well, Abhishek, and the learners here. Thanks so much for your time and joining in. So with this, I'm also ending the certificate poll. 2 people on Zoom as well, in case you couldn't enter your name, you're not able to figure out where the poll is, please email us at webinars@simplilearn.net. That's if you didn't answer the poll. If you have answered the poll, we've recorded your names. You don't need to do that again. But let's say you have an issue with your certificate, please let us know here. And you will receive the certificate and the recording in the next 24 hours. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We got so many questions. It's always invigorating to get these questions and jog up our own understanding of the world of AI. So it was great to understand what several professionals require from AI. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Aparna. You're awesome.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.